Hello everyone, my name is Chris Gibbons. I am the coordinator for the MHA program. I'm also the faculty member in charge of practicum, and this video is for students who are graduating this fall. Okay, folks, so if you are graduating this fall, this video is for you, and if you are also required to take practicum. So if you need practicum and you're graduating this fall, which would be December of 2020, watch this video to learn about practicum and how we're going to be doing it. All right, so hopefully those folks that are needing practicum and are graduating this fall are watching this video. So here's what we're doing. Obviously, you may have received some of the emails regarding practicum and COVID-19 and everything that's going on. But what I'm going to try to do in this video is recap kind of where we're at now, and then what opportunities are available for you to complete your practicum requirement. All right, so let's talk about where we're at now. Obviously, with COVID-19, that changed everything with practicum. Clinical sites all around the country were shutting down and are still shut down, and we physically cannot place students out in practicum. We've also made the decision to suspend practicum for the entire calendar year. So obviously that would include your group in there. Why have we done that? Well, one, because really the current environment is making it impossible to establish any practicum agreements, and that it's just, by the time things will be greenlit to reopen again, it will be too late realistically to get folks ready for physical practicum because of all the behind the scenes work that needs to be done legally with practicum agreements, especially to make that happen. And many of you have not been able to even your preceptors. No one even wants to talk about practicum yet. So it takes many, many months, to get that courtship started before you even set foot in practicum. So it just made sense that it's just not going to happen, this year. So what are we going to do? Well, the first thing is that you are required to still take practicum. So that part hasn't gone away. Again, if you were originally required to take practicum, if there's any questions about whether you need practicum or not, contact me and we'll talk about that. But that should have been identified right when you started the program if you needed the practicum experience as part of your graduation requirements. So that is still there, but we're just tweaking it up with this COVID-19 environment and still trying to give you something meaningful, out of this whole experience. So here's what you have. Here's the way it works and what it's going to look like for the for the rest of the semesters for the academic year. Students, and we've got a group of students that are currently doing this, so you can thank them for getting all the bugs and kinks worked out of it. But here's how it's going to work. So you will still contact somebody, okay? And it can be, I'll call it a preceptor. So you'll still contact a preceptor. But you will not be doing, again, no physical practicum. But you'll contact a preceptor. So, for example, what would that look like? Well, maybe, it could be your boss. Maybe it's your boss's boss. It could be maybe a department manager or district manager. Typically, it's going to be someone who's a manager or leader in an area of interest that you have in healthcare administration. Okay? So that's pretty broad, all right? It's perfectly okay if it's within your own department. Okay, so that not being in your own department thing, we're moving that on. Okay, so it's perfectly okay if it's in your department. So you're going to identify someone to talk to. And here's what you're going to talk about. You're going to tell this person you've identified that, hey, I really have an interest in your area, and I'm going to be doing field-based research as part of my graduation requirements. And that's the key word, field-based research. So you can use that phrase if you want. I'm required to do field-based research in an area that I'm interested in, and you say, I'm interested in this area. So let's pick, I'll pick an example like in my area. So medical imaging. So let's say I went to the regional manager for medical imaging, and I said, I really have an interest in improving repeat X-rays, because those are really bad. You really don't want to you don't want to repeat an X-ray that you've already done. And I would love to explore that and produce a white paper for you in areas that and come up with some solutions for you in that particular area. Okay, so I just threw out some words there, white paper. So that's one route you can go. So when you talk to the preceptor, again, in an area that you're interested in, whomever that is, whatever area that is, as long as it's healthcare, okay, you can identify typically a problem, okay? Maybe they've identified a problem and need some help in it, or maybe you've identified a problem and would like to explore that. But between the two of you, you'll talk about what that topic is going to be. They may have something in line like, oh gosh, yes, we really need help in increasing patient satisfaction scores. I would love to learn about can you basically help me with that? And there's two ways that you can help them with their problem. Okay, so let's conceptualize this. Once you have the topic idea, okay, it can come from you, it can come from them, it can come from you two talking together. Ideally, it would come from you two kind of talking together about it. And it hopefully should not take very long, because what we're finding too is that the preceptors don't have any time right now. Either many of them have been furloughed or laid off, or they're getting crushed, or there's all these other external worries going on right now. And the last thing they really want to do is a lot of I guess hand holding or time investment with any students. So this should not take much time on their behalf. And it's flexible too. If they do have a lot of time to give to you, great. You can go, you can do that. But we're finding in many cases they don't. So you talk to the preceptor, you guys come up with the thing, whatever the topic is. And if you take the mindset that you are basically a consultant, pretend like you're a consultant, you two have defined a problem together or an area of interest or whatever, but you've defined this thing together. And now you as a consultant are going to go away and you're going to produce an answer to their problem. And then you'll, if they wish, you could check in with them as you're producing it. If they don't, if they don't have the ability to check in with you, that's okay. You'll still produce it at the end and offer them the final product, your final, you can think of it like a final consultation report. But many of the students are using the white paper format. That's the easiest way to go. And we'll talk more about what white papers are, but it's basically, here's a problem. And maybe the history of the problem, here are the approaches to the problem, and here's what I recommend to fix the problem. So the white paper is kind of like that. It's usually a solution generating thing. At the end, there's usually your recommendation of best practice to solve that, whatever that thing is, okay? So there's the white paper. And again, it's off of a real life. We really want this to be a real life thing, problem, issue, area of research out in the field. Okay, and some students are saying a research paper. It's much more than a research paper, but it does have definitely some researchy type papers aspects to it. All right, so there's that route. You can go the white paper direction. You come up with that idea. You're the consultant. You're going to go away. You're going to do your research on it at home and do your research on it. And then you're going to come back and give them this wonderful white paper at the end. What's also cool about the white paper is you can use it for your personal advantage. And that's what we want anything out of this practicum, is for you to use it for your personal advantage. That's what this practicum is about. It's about helping you get a better job down the road. So if you produce the white paper, let's say it's improving patient satisfaction scores in outpatient clinics. Okay, you've produced that white paper. Obviously, you give it to the preceptor at the end. Maybe it's great, they love it, maybe whatever, maybe they don't even read it. It doesn't make a difference. Hopefully they do read it and give you feedback on it. But you have that, and then you can highlight, produce the white paper on improving patient satisfaction scores, best practices, yada yada, an outpatient environment. You can actually put that on your CV that you created that. And if that was an area of interest that you had, a job area of interest, imagine if you were sitting in an interview and maybe you're going, for the, the director or manager of, an outpatient clinic, and you're sitting there and you see, well, by the way, I've written a white paper on how to improve outpatient, patient satisfaction scores in outpatient clinics. Really, you have? I'd be happy to share that with you, after the interview. And imagine if you shared that white paper. I mean, you would set yourself apart. No one is doing that in an interview. So you would really set yourself apart and showing yourself that you're truly an expert, in that area. That you've taken time, you've researched a problem in that area, and yes, maybe you've given them an answer to that, but I guarantee that no one is really doing that in the interview. So you can use that to really set yourself apart. So the white paper can help you in that direction. Okay, so that's one way that you can go with this. The other way you can go, you're still going to talk to the preceptor. You're still going to come up with this idea that they need help with, but they may be more hands-on than most preceptors are during COVID-19. So they may say to you, I could really use your help with developing, and I'll pick on one that the student's actually doing. I really need help in developing an onboarding checklist and a whole onboarding process here in my department. Can you help me? Because it's a mess right now, and I need you to help me develop that. And so that's a very specific project within a department. Okay, so you're not going to necessarily produce a white paper there because you and the preceptor have talked and you've identified a thing. Okay, maybe it's a policy manual. Maybe it's you're researching. You're helping to create RFPs for purchasing a new scanner. I mean, whatever it might be, you're kind of doing this project, okay? And it's going to produce something else other than a white paper at the end, okay? You're absolutely okay in doing that. I think that's a great way to go as well. It just takes that preceptor, if you're doing something that's, really that specific, in their department, their area, they've got to be a lot more hands-on with you and, probably checking in once a week with you on, on that particular project. So you don't kind of go in the wrong direction and, because they're looking for something at the end that very, very specific. So you could still go that route as well. I would just caution you as you present the two different paths that that everybody's realistic about what they can do. What we found is that some preceptors tried to maintain the non-white paper route, but then they got furloughed, and then they got called back, and then they got moved around, and then it kind of fell apart. So it just seemed easier to go the white paper route because that one only takes basically an initial contact. It could be like a 15-minute conversation, and then you're on your own doing your own thing as a consultant. Again, you could still try to engage with them, but you're set. You got the problem in mind that you have to solve, and you're solving it. And you're solving it through the format of a white paper. So just be realistic. If the time commitment from the external person, okay, that preceptor, is a little bit more than would be required with the white paper. So if neither one of, if the preceptor says, look, let's talk about this thing, I got 15 minutes and then we can talk about it, get this idea. It would be helpful to me, but unfortunately I'm really busy. I can't talk to you every week. White paper, So you got the two routes you can go, okay? White paper or some sort of project that produces something at the end, typically, for the benefit of, of that department, that area that you're communicating with. So there you go. There's that part of it. No practicum agreements required. You are not, hopefully you saw the information, no CASEL branches required. You're not physically doing anything. It's, at the most, or at the least, it would be about a 15-minute interaction with a preceptor that you've identified that can be in the area to which you work. All right, so that's how we are doing field-based research, and that's the connection to the field, is that it is an area generated directly out of the field in an area of interest that you have, and hopefully it meets the needs of a preceptor as well. And we have found that the students have been able to engage with the preceptors and find them, at least in that very limited, time situation. That hasn't been an issue. But you still need to go out there and find that person, okay? And many of you have already kind of identified that person. If you are having difficulties in getting anyone to talk to you at all about that, kind of that mutual area of interest, I'll call it the problem, wherever their problem is. If you're totally not finding preceptors at all that can engage with you, remember, you have to tell them I'm not looking for an internship or a practicum, like normal. I just really need to talk to you because I'm doing some field-based research. I want to run some ideas by you. I want us to come up with an idea together. And then I'm going to go forward and do all the field-based research on this on my own, so let them know they're kind of off the hook, because, they would be hesitant to being on the hook for hosting a student right now. And again, most of them, though they want to, they just can't. All right, so still go out there and identify that person and have that conversation and develop that initial topic, that thing, as a consultant. You can think like you're a consultant, because ultimately whatever you do, you're acting very much like a consultant, and whatever that piece is that they need consulting help with, or that you suggest. All right, so go out and start knocking on doors or developing that idea. Now, how are we doing the hours? So you have to do 120 hours. Many of you have seen the videos and have heard me talk, ad nauseum about the 120 hours. But practicum is 120 hours. We have to get that done. Here's how we're doing it. So if you are doing route number 1, the white paper, okay? If you're doing the white paper route, then it's very simple. Every 1 page of content that you make is worth 4 pages of time, 4 hours of time. So 1 page, 4 hours. Okay, so you can do the math on how many pages that you're going to have to need to get 120 hours, and it's going to have to be a full page, a legit page of content, not just a bunch of clip art. Okay, so legit, kind of. It could be a chart. Sometimes charts take a ton of time to put them together correctly, but about 1 page of content is equivalent to 4 hours. So you can go, that's very easy. You don't need to keep log sheets, because I'm simply going to count the pages at the end, okay, to determine if you've got the number of hours needed to complete the course, okay? Let's say you go the other route. You're doing the project, with the preceptor, it's more active, and you're producing maybe a manual or whatever, okay? Some sort of mutual project for them, and the benefit of you and for benefit of them. That one, since you're most likely not producing a physical paper, with pages, you will log your time traditional. Just, I spent 3 hours research, or I spent 2 hours research. You'll keep a log on that time, because quite frankly, like again, I'll pick on the one student. She's doing a checklist, onboarding checklist, and she's done tons of research in best practices and what that might be. But ultimately, when it's done, it may be 3 pages. The checklist may be only about 3 pages long, but the backup source material is all out there. But so it's kind of like all this went into only this. Well, yes, it did. So in those cases, that's where, if you're not doing the white paper, you do want to keep a traditional log, which your preceptor, we will ask them if possible to at least kind of verify, I spent that much time on, research. So there is how we're going to get the hours in. All right, so hopefully we now know what we're doing. Okay, the two different paths. We know how we're going to log our hours. And now how are we going to get the structure of the course? How are we going to get the hours in? As some of you, if you're staying aware of things, we've decided to, before COVID-19 hit, when I came over to help with the MHA program, I realized, that you guys are getting really placed in a hard, difficult position, and that practicum was only one semester. And that required students to do 8 hours a week. And that's really unrealistic for working professionals in most cases. So, I was given permission to extend practicum. It seemed pretty clear that we had to do that anyway. We needed to extend practicum over 2 semesters. So that allowed students a little bit easier time to get things done. So these are some of the choices that you have now. You can choose to start practicum, if you wish, this summer, okay? And do basically half of it this summer and half of it in fall. If you choose, okay, if you're choosing the 2-semester version of practicum, which I would recommend, I think that's the best route to go. If you're choosing the 2-semester version, then you will want to schedule HCA 565 for 1.5 credit hours this summer, okay? HCA 565 for 1.5 credit hours this summer. That course is out there. We got 3 different versions of that course. We got a 3 credit hour, we've got a 1.5, and we've got a 1. Okay, so you want the 1.5. And then, of course, next fall or in the fall, you'll take another 1.5, and that equals 3 credit hours. If you are, if you decide that, it's okay, I can get this done starting in August and have it done by December before I graduate. So you're just going to do the one semester version. That's fine. Register for the course in the fall, and you'll want to do the 3 credit hour version in the fall. So you can do that. Again, I would, up to you. I think it's just easier spreading it out. If you are doing the 2-semester version, you're working about 4 hours a week on this. So imagine this: if you do this 2-semester version, you're only producing 1 page of content a week. And if you just keep that pace, about 1 page of content a week, you're going to be golden. And you'll be fine and all set to graduate, hopefully without a lot of pain. But again, 1 page of content, it might take you 2 hours, might take you 5 hours of research. It all depends. We're calling it 4 hours of research for every 1 page of white paper produced. So keep that in mind. It's doable in both ways, but that is up to you. So I wanted to make sure that you guys understood that if you wanted to do the 2-semester version, you can do that and register for the course. So hopefully that answers all of your questions. We know how hours are going to be logged. We know what you're going to be doing. Okay, you got the 2 different choices. You just need to work with a person, we'll call him a preceptor, to a leadership manager individual to identify a thing, a problem, issue, area of interest, area of research, whatever you want to call it, and then decide, white paper route, or whether it's going to be more interactive with the preceptor, and you're not going to go the white paper. You're not producing a white paper. You're producing some other unique thing, for that. And then you also know that you can do either the 1 credit or the 1 semester version, which would start in August, 3 credit hours, or you can do the 2-semester version, 1.5 credit hours now, 1.5 credit hours in the fall. You're not doing Castle Branch, so stop that immediately. If you hopefully you got the notices on that. Do not do Castle Branch. There is no clinical contracts necessary. There is no physical, practicum logged hours. You may, I'm gonna bet you I'm gonna get an email. Well, I'm doing this at my place of work and I'm working with my manager, and we're physically together still at work. That's fine, but you're not physically logging practicum hours. You cannot physically log practicum hours at a physical practicum site. You have to be at home doing this. We're banning everybody from being required to go to places and do things because of the stay-at-home orders in most cases in almost every state. So if you just happen to be with your boss and you're in the same office together because you work together, that's fine, but you're not clocking any hours in there. Okay, guys, make sure that's clear. All right, so that I think covers pretty much everything. So if you if I see that you register for the 1.5 credit hour course for this summer, okay, I'm going to send you. You're going to be invited to a Canvas course, and within that Canvas course, it will, kind of get you started on the process, which is relatively easy. I mean, there is no quizzes or tests or anything like that. Really, you're just working on this field-based research. You will check in with me every couple of weeks, whichever route you're going, field-based research or embedded department project. I'm going to check in with you every couple of weeks and see how you're doing. If you have any questions, another person you can talk to about it as you're going through it. I think it's relatively, there's no lectures or really anything like that. There are some videos in the course about what white papers are. You can Google that as well. And if you don't know what a white paper is, you can Google that as well. If there's some other unique format that you would rather do versus a white paper, I mean, that's fine. You can talk to me about it. It just seemed that was the easiest route to go and the most, I'm going to say, commercially friendly route. Most managers do not want to read an APA research paper. Let's be honest with you, they do not want to read that. The white paper is really a commercial-oriented paper for people that do stuff and make decisions. So that's the route that speaks the language of business than versus speaking the language of academics. So that's kind of why kind of the white paperish route we're suggesting to most students. I will leave you with this one notice as well, which when we made the announcement that we were canceling physical practicum for the year, that any student that wishes to still attend physical practicum, we would be happy to give you that. So, but here's the exchange, if you will. So let's say you're saying, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do the field-based research. I want that experience that I thought I was going to get. Well, as soon as we can get you out there, we will, if that's what you want. But what it's going to mean that your graduation will be delayed and could be up to a year. And you think, well, that's crazy. So even if, why would that be? Let's say, I'll pick June or July. We're sort of back to normal and everything's kind of opened back up again. In order to get clinical contracts in place, it takes 2, 3, or 4 months to get a clinical contract in place for you. And if it fails, which it happens often for whatever, there's a lot of legal departments involved, quite frankly. So if for some reason it fails, in month 3, and we had this happen. We were negotiating with a hospital in North Carolina. We were 3 months into this negotiation for one student to go out there. And ultimately, what they were asking for, we were just not going to provide. So that, because it was so outlandish from any clinical agreement we've ever seen before. So we said no, so that was 3 months down the road. And after going back and forth, so then, starting on the plan B for that student would have taken another 2, 3, or 4 months. So we always have to plan on a plan B if negotiations with the hosting site fail. So we really like to do these, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ahead of time to get these clinical contracts in place. So it takes quite a long time. So let's say even if the stars aligned perfectly and we were able to get you placed, the earliest would be January of 21. But to be honest, I think more realistic, it would probably be January, February, March, April of 91 or 91 of 21. So, it's, you're almost pushing it out a whole year. But, and you'd have to delay your graduation because you would not have completed all your graduation requirements. Again, if you wish, you can do that. Let me know, that you definitely wanted to do regular physical practicum, and we could, just hold on to that and shoot for January. And if spring semester doesn't work, we could shoot for, it'd be summer semester of 2021 again, which I think would be more realistic. So there you go. I think most of you probably opt to get it done. I think there is still tremendous value if you do it right. Especially like, with either route. If you're going with the embedded project route or the white paper. The white paper is really cool because you can leverage that. Again, in an interview, you could leverage it. We're even thinking maybe about putting them out on the web. At your request, we're not going to put anything on the web unless you ask for it. So wouldn't that be cool if your research area, whatever it was, started coming up in Google searches? And you're kind of advertising yourself. Maybe you have a LinkedIn page. Hope you do. If you have a LinkedIn page, you put it on there. You want something that establishes you as sort of a content expert in an area that you'll be interviewing for. So that would set yourself apart in that interview. And the white paper would be it's a tangible way to do that. It's not just people talking. So much in an interview is talk. Well, here's what I can do for you, and here's why I'm, and that's important. You have to be able to answer the questions, but actually to be able to show, well, here's a tangible product for you that I can show you of my work that can address problems, but you can also see how I approach problem solving, whether it's this problem or any problem. So if you really go into it with that, you could leverage the white paper pretty well. It just from my own standpoint, I did something similar for medical imaging education, and I did it no charge. I just did it because I wanted a job in that particular area. And I wanted to establish myself as someone who knew something about it. And lo and behold, I had given it to a director, and she loved it, and it ended up, they hired me, and I ended up building the second largest program at the college, that came out of it, our medical imaging program. It's the largest program outside of nursing. So it's, it was from that got that employer's interest that got my foot in the door. So it can, if you play it correctly, it could help you get a foot in the door. Even more powerful than the traditional practicum. Now, what are you losing with the traditional practicum? The one thing that I lament is that you are losing the networking ability, meeting multiple people. which you typically as students will get networking through. It's not just their preceptor, but multiple individuals throughout their time there. That's gonna be lost, for the most part. You'll still have an interaction with that key individual, that key preceptor. That's gonna, again, you'll discuss that idea with, but I think that exchange, between the two, I think it's an equal exchange between what you can leverage out of like a white paper project and then what you lose kind of from the networking aspects. So I think they're equal. So there you go, guys. Kind of a long video here, but hopefully that answers what the process is. So here's your action steps. 1, decide, hey, do I want to go 2 semesters or 1? If you want to go 2, go register for HCA 565 for 1.5 credit hours this summer, and then you'll receive all the information that you need to kind of get going with that, which is pretty easy. So that's action step number 1. Action step number 2, whether you decide you're going this summer or not, that means you're going in the fall, you need to start talking to someone, find someone to have a conversation about, to identify that problem, again, whatever it is, so you can go forth with the white paper, or identify that embedded project that they're willing to work with you on if you're going in that direction. Okay, so start talking to that person this week, next week. Again, most of you have already identified that person because you've been talking about practicum with them before this all went crazy. There you go, guys. All right, so if you have any questions, feel free to text me. My number's down below. You can email me as well. Text is usually better to get my attention quickly because I get so many emails. But either way, reach out to me and we'll get your questions answered. All right, guys, have a great few days left in the semester, and I hope everybody gets to recharge their batteries for at least over the next couple weeks before we get started with summer. Thanks.